15 haunting true tales from Reddit, unexplained horrors revealed in this disturbing collection. It was supposed to be a sleepy little suburb, and Willow Creek had once been the kind of place where kids played tag on sun-soaked lawns, where laughter floated through air thick with the scent of barbecues. But now, an oppressive silence wrapped around the neighborhood like a suffocating blanket. Melissa, a dedicated social worker in her 30s, felt it every time she walked home late at night. This wasn't mere quiet, it was the unsettling silence of something wrong, something lurking just out of sight. On this particular evening, the air was charged with unease. As she neared her home, her heart stuttered at the sight of Mr. Caldwell, her neighbor. The man who used to be the life of community gatherings now stood frozen, staring at the tree lean as if it might swallow him whole. His smile had been replaced with a vacant stare, striking fear through her. She turned quickly, hoping to dismiss the nagging sensation that clawed at her gut, but the shadows felt heavier that night and the following days. The reports started filtering in, one family after another claiming their children had turned mute, lost in their thoughts, consumed by darkness. Families vanished without a peep, leaving behind unanswered questions and frantic whispers among the remaining. Each case twisted her stomach, tightening around her resolve like a vice. What was happening in her beloved community? But she brushed it off, convinced that her commitment to serving these families outweighed the potential danger lurking there. Then came the night when dread washed over her like ice water. Your instincts scream to run, but the pull of fate often reveals something unimaginable. A restless urgency guided her to Mr. Caldwell's home. Driven by fear and curiosity, she stumbled upon a secret hidden beneath his floorboards. The horrifying cache linked to those children now missing sent chills down her spine, each item a testament to the sinister truth that lay hidden beneath the mundane. The legend of the abductor spoke of shadows and sweet smiles, but this was no tale, it was her reality. She had ignored it all out of loyalty to her community, to a gradual belief that it was still safe. As nights dragged on, paralysis filled her with dread. Mr. Caldwell had been watching her, eyes that once gleamed with neighborly charm now a void filled with something monstrous. He knew her family, knew their routines, knew their fears. Paranoia settled in like a fog, oppressive and choking. She began stockpiling supplies, desperate to enact an escape plan that felt increasingly necessary. Then came that dark, moonless night, when everything changed. She returned home to a children's drawing spread across her dining room table, an innocent crayon sketch unmistakably drawn by her son. It displayed Mr. Caldwell with a grin that turned her stomach, surrounded by shadowy figures of kids holding hands, trapped in his world. Panic slammed into her, breath hitching. A thud echoed from the back of the house, a sound that froze her blood. She glanced out the window only to find Mr. Caldwell standing on the tree lean, a chilling certainty in his stare that made her stomach knot sharply, suffocating her like the shadows closing in. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As night thickened around her, the feel of protection turned into paralyzing dread. Memories of laughter, playdates, and neighborhood barbecues felt like ancient ghosts. She stood there, trembling, trapped in a world where the line between safe and unsafe had blurred. Melissa's heart raced as she faced the undeniable truth. Would uncovering this horror lead her to fight for her family, or would it bring an end to everything she held dear? The shadows whispered secrets of impending doom, and the lingering question remained, was she already too late? The thudding noise from inside her house shattered Melissa's racing thoughts. Every fiber in her being screamed that she should flee, but her body felt glued to the spot. Mr. Caldwell didn't move, nor did he break eye contact. It was as if he was waiting, calculating his next move. She forced her legs to take a step back, but the drawing on the table held her gaze. The crude outlines of children, the gleeful figure of Mr. Caldwell, everything seemed to pulse, mocking her ignorance. Whatever had taken hold in Willow Creek was growing stronger, and it reveled in her fear. After a moment that stretched like a slingshot, she turned and darted down the hallway, desperately glancing back just once before plunging into the darkened confines of her home. Clutching her phone, she fumbled with the screen, her fingers shaking. She had to warn someone, anyone. But the signal flickered. No bars, no connection. Melissa cursed under her breath, panic escalating as she grabbed her car keys and swung the door open. Outside, the air felt thick and wrong, like a child's held breath. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she sprinted to her car, each rustle of the leaves clawing at her sanity. As she fished the keys from her pocket, a sudden clang resonated behind her, a suitcase thudding to the ground. She whipped around, the starlit emptiness closing in, expanding quickly as dread surrounded her. The suitcase. Was it left behind? Or was Mr. Caldwell trying to send her a message, fear urging her forward? Melissa threw the suitcase open. It gaped wide, spilling forth a random assortment of children's belongings, broken toys, a dusty soccer ball, colorful raincoats like shrouds. Each item seemed a testament to lives cut short, robbed of vibrancy. She staggered back, bile rising in her throat as she connected the dots. Something shifted in the tree-line. Mr. Caldwell stepped forward, dimly lit by the ambient glow of the streetlight. He appeared almost ethereal, his smile grotesquely wide as he beckoned her with a crooked finger. The last shards of confidence splintered within her, dread engulfed her mind again. Didn't he have a right to be here, not after everything she had discovered? Stay away from my family. She screamed, her voice echoing across the desolation. The smile on his face faded. But they're already with me, he replied, an unsettling calm lacing his words. You should be listened, Melissa. It's time to join them. Melissa stumbled back into her car, fumbling with the keys. She sank into the driver's seat, panic coursing through her veins as she turned the ignition, praying for the engine to roar to life. Instead, only silence greeted her, churning the fear into a tempest within. Her heart raced, the shadows inching ever closer. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she saw something blink, a flash of vibrant orange just beyond the tree line. It was her son's raincoat. A part of her wanted to scream, to confront Mr. Caldwell, to demand answers, yet another part screamed to escape. The engine sputtered again, and her vision blurred with tears. The man she had dismissed as harmless now loomed larger, embodying the collective horror that had gripped Willow Creek. Would anyone believe her if she made it out? Would anyone even care? With a final sickening surge of despair, she slammed her foot down on the gas pedal. The tires screeched, propelling her car forward as the headlights cut through the darkness, revealing fleeting glimpses of more abandoned toys scattered along the roadside. Each item a reminder of a life that had once been bright, but were there still lives to save? Just as she reached the end of the street, something heavy slammed against her rear bumper. Ice filled her veins. She didn't need to look back to know who had followed her into the night. In the rearview mirror, she caught sight of Caldwell, shadows pooling around him like ink. What would he do now? She gripped the steering wheel, breath rapid and shallow. Time was running out. She had to find out if there were more like him in Willow Creek, or if he was truly alone. But one question echoed louder than the others: how deep did this darkness go? The car jolted with the force of Caldwell's impact, sending a shudder through Melissa's body. Heart pounding, she cursed the ignition. It had to start. She needed to escape now. But no matter how hard she turned the key, the engine only sputtered in protest. Panic surged. Outside, Caldwell moved with deliberate slowness, shadows clinging to him like a second skin. His eyes glinted with a predator's satisfaction. With every tick of the clock inside her head, the world outside faded away, leaving nothing but him and the unholy intent she could feel radiating from his smile. "Let me in," he said, his voice syrupy sweet, crawling beneath her skin. "No!" She shrieked, her throat raw, the sound an echo of pure terror. She pressed the locks, each click amplifying her dread. Would they even hold? Would she be safe? He tilted his head, the grin never leaving. "Oh, Melissa, you have no idea how fast this can escalate. You think they were taken? They weren't. They're part of this now." Melissa's breath hitched, an involuntary shiver racing down her spine. Her thoughts spiraled in desperation. What had she stumbled into? Had her simple life in Willow Creek become entwined in something monstrous? Through the window, the darkness seemed to pulse, alive, menacing. She clutched her phone like a talisman, praying for a miracle. But no signal flickered. No savior appeared in her hour of need. Just Mr. Caldwell, relentless and curling like smoke, invading her reality. In a last-ditch effort, she lunged for the passenger seat, yanking it open. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Maybe if she could make it around, she could slip through. Reaching for the door handle, she looked back, but there he stood, too close now, a barrier between her and freedom. "Come, Melissa," he coaxed, stepping forward, one foot after another, as if gliding across the grass. "You've always wanted to know their secrets. Now, I'll show you." The distant howls of the wind carried his words, chilling her to the bone. She felt trapped in a macabre game, and Caldwell was the master, teasing her with hope and horror. Unleashing instinct, she tore back into the driver's seat, all reason replaced by fear. Sobbing, she pressed her foot against the brake and just sat there. Breathless, she was paralyzed, the weight of despair pressing down like a heavy cloak. Then something shifted again in the tree line. For an instant, her heart flared with a flicker of absurd hope. It was just a shadow. A trick of the light. But in that moment, urgency gripped her. She knew she had to act. Caldwell wouldn't wait. With a final wrench of courage, she wrenched her gaze back to the dashboard. "Please," the plea bubbled out, desperate and raw. "Please work." Again, she twisted the key. This time the engine coughed violently before roaring to life. The sound exploded in the stillness, almost unnatural in its fury. At that very moment, Caldwell's expression darkened, transformation from cordial predator to furious beast unfolding. Melissa slammed the gear into drive, and with a gnashing of teeth from the engine, she sped off into the night, but her relief was brief. Glancing in the rearview, she saw him there, an ominous figure growing smaller but never fading, his eyes luminous against the nothingness. What had he unleashed? And worse, what was coming for her next? As the trees whipped past in a blur, she knew there was more to this nightmare than Caldwell. More darkness awaiting. Answers lay just beyond, deeper in the heart of Willow Creek. Would she find them in time? The road twisted and turned like a serpent, the headlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. Melissa's pulse raced as she gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Each bump and sway of the car felt like a warning, reminding her that Caldwell was still out there, lurking. Glancing in the rearview mirror, the realization hit hard. There were no familiar streetlights, only the thick, encroaching shadows of the trees on either side. She could hardly breathe, her lungs constricted by fear and panic. The further she drove, the more the road felt foreign and threatening, winding deeper into the unknown. What had he meant? About them being part of it now? A shudder traced her spine. She glanced at her phone again, still dead. A lifeline severed. A storm of questions whirled in her mind. Where could she go? Who could she trust? Was anyone left in Willow Creek to help her? The woods around her seemed to close in, embracing her like an eager, dark predator. Branches clawed at the windshield, raining down leaves that smeared across the glass, whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. She pressed the gas, as if speed would somehow deliver her from the unseen terror. But the road stretched on, intent on testing her resolve. As she turned a bend, the headlights caught something, a glimpse of movement at the edge of the forest. Her heart stopped. Was it Caldwell? No. This was something different, but still equally unsettling. A figure stepped onto the road. Melissa's breath caught in her throat. It was a woman, gaunt and pale, her expression shadowed beneath tangled hair. Something was wrong with her. She swayed, as if perched on a fragile line between this world and another. Melissa slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching in protest. "What's wrong with you?" The words slipped out, trembling. The woman lifted her head, revealing eyes devoid of light. "Help us, please." Her voice was a ghost of a sound. And as she stepped closer, Melissa caught a glimpse behind her, more shapes emerging from the trees, faces twisted with despair and agony. They all bore a familiarity that chilled her. "I don't want to get involved." She yanked the wheel, desperate to push the car into reverse. But the figures were closing in fast, their movements jerky and unnatural. They surrounded the vehicle, tapping on the windows with skeletal fingers, their hollow eyes pleading. "Join us," the woman rasped, the words slithering through the space between them. "You can't escape him. You don't know what he's going to do." The feeling of being trapped surged back, overwhelming and suffocating. Caldwell had opened a gate to something far worse than she could understand. Their faces were a blend of terror and madness. They were reminders of all she wanted to forget, all she feared. With adrenaline pumping again, she flung the gear shift into reverse, the tires spinning against the gravel as she backed away, leaving the haunting sight behind. The figures receded into the depths of the forest, but not without leaving a piece of their dread in the air around her, a visceral stench of despair. Melissa didn't know where to go next. The road had become a malevolent maze, and every direction seemed to teeter into darkness. As her mind raced, a faint glimmer in the distance caught her attention. A flicker of light, almost like a beacon, stood out against the inky blackness. Hope surged, mingling dangerously with her unease. What lay at the light? Safety or another layer of horror? Steeling herself, she pressed forward, her heart pounding like a war drum. With every passing moment, she felt the weight of Caldwell's presence looming closer. And as she approached the light, she wondered, was this the escape she desperately craved, or the very trap he had set for her? What if it was a door to more nightmares waiting to unfold? The light grew brighter, cutting through the dark like a knife. Melissa squinted, confusion swirling with a nagging sense of dread. It was a cabin, nestled between towering trees. It looked abandoned but alive, flickering like a flirty wink from the dark itself. A flicker of doubt shot through her. Should she really be getting closer? What if Caldwell had set this up too? She could almost hear the echo of the pleading woman's voice, "You can't escape him." But curiosity battled against her fear. There was something welcoming about the light. Maybe someone was inside. Maybe there was help. Wrenching the door open, she stepped outside. The night air was cold, biting her skin like icy fingers. Every step toward the cabin felt like a step deeper into quicksand, pulling her further from safety. Shadows twisted and thrashed around her, a cacophony of whispered warnings spilling from the trees. "Get back in the car!" A part of her screamed. But she pressed on, dragging her feet forward, heartbeat thumping wildly in her chest. The singe of old wood greeted her as she reached the cabin door. It was ajar, swinging slowly in a ghostly rhythm. Tentatively, she called out, "Hello." Silence dripped back. The only sound was the wind picking at the edges of the trees, shushing her intrusion. With a deep breath, she shoved the door open wider. The interior was dim, punctuated by the flickering candlelight. Dust danced in the air, glowing like tiny specters. Old furniture loomed in the shadows, draped in grimy sheets that hadn't felt a human touch in years. A twinge of nostalgia wrapped around her, a home once filled with warmth, now a hollow tomb. She stepped inside, an invisible force urging her to continue. The floor creaked underfoot, and she flinched at the sound. "Please someone," she murmured, wishing her voice didn't echo like a desperate plead. At a shape broke from the shadows, startling her. It was a man, unkempt and wild-eyed, gripping a rusted lantern. He looked just as lost, marooned in his own world of nightmares. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, his voice hoarse and trembling. "They'll come for you." His gaze darted toward the door as if sensing something lurking just beyond it. Who will come?" Her heart raced, striking hard against her ribs. He stepped closer, candlelight flickering across his face, revealing a gaunt skeleton of a man, eyes wide with panic. The ones you saw in the woods, they weren't human anymore. The loud crash from outside made them both jump. The sound vibrated through the walls, an angry thud followed by shuffling footsteps that didn't belong to either of them. The man's face twisted in fear. "They've found you." Without thinking, Melissa grabbed the lantern from his trembling hands. "What do I do?" "Bar the door," he shouted, scrambling back into the shadows. "Don't let them in." She turned toward the door, heart racing. The commotion grew, heavy footsteps trampling through the fallen leaves outside, voices low and murmuring, menacing. Waves of dread crashed over her. She felt the walls close in, the flickering light casting her shadow long and haunting on the wooden floor. Melissa bolted to the door, pushing it shut just as the first thudding hit the frame. They were here, those faces pale and twisted, waiting to claim her, to drag her into their realm of despair. "Help!" she screamed, voice rising in panic. The doorknob rattled violently, the shadows jiggling with inhuman persistence. But then a voice came from behind her, calm and cold as ice. "You shouldn't have come here, Melissa." She turned, the lantern flickering wildly in her grasp, heart in her throat. The man was gone. In his place stood Caldwell, looming like a storm cloud over a withering landscape. What lay beyond that door? Could she survive? She clutched the lantern tighter as the darkness began to close in around her. Caldwell's eyes glinted in the dim light, a strange mix of menace and mockery. Panic overwhelmed Melissa. He was standing right there, yet somehow felt disconnected, almost ethereal. Her grip tightened on the lantern, the flickering flame becoming the only source of clarity in the mounting chaos. "Stay away from me," she shouted, backing toward the door, bracing for the greater threat lying just beyond the splintered wood. The thumping on the cabin door intensified, the sound like a heartbeat drumming, a countdown to her fate. "Do you think you can escape this? They're already inside your head," Caldwell taunted, his voice barely above a whisper, yet cutting through the air with an unsettling chill. Each word latched onto her like a vice, squeezing her resolve. "No. I want to let you take me," Melissa yelled, the words spilling out like an incantation against the dark. For a moment, she caught the hint of disbelief flickering across his face. Silence dropped suddenly, suffocating the air like a heavy blanket. The rattling ceased. The shadows around them twisted into something grotesque, lurching and slithering like snakes testing their boundaries. Melissa dared a glance out the window, the wooded gloom outside swallowing light as if it were alive, hungry. "Listen to me, Melissa," Caldwell rasped, stepping closer as if time had warped, the distance between them collapsing. "They wear the faces of those you love. They need you to let them in. It's the only way to survive." He tilted his head, his gaze piercing through her. "They can't hurt you if you just join them." "Join them?" she whispered, the horror echoing off the walls like a curse. She shook her head violently, ears ringing with disbelief. "I'd rather die." Caldwell's expression shifted, a forbidding grin stretching unnaturally across his face. "Then you've already lost, sweetheart." His fingertips beckoned toward the door, the metal knob tremoring, as if begging her to open it. "It's only a matter of time." Suddenly, the door bucked under an immense force. Wood splintered, catching the corners of her vision, igniting the instinct to run. Her muscles tensed, preparing for a hasty escape when a piercing scream erupted from outside, a sound that felt like it clawed its way into her soul. "Help!" a voice yelled, raw with desperation. It sounded so familiar but far away. It echoed deep within her, engulfing her with dread. "Let them in. Let them help you." Caldwell's voice warped, turning from sweet persuasion to an agonizing screech, the shadows twisting violently around him as if beginning to lose their form. Melissa lunged toward the door, swinging it open just as hordes of pale, gaunt faces surged forward. They flooded over her threshold like drawn moths rushing to a flame, their eyes filled with hunger and an unspeakable need. A wave of writhing forms engulfed her vision, their whispers intertwining in a sinister lullaby. "No!" She screamed again, but she felt the tug of the dark, dragging her. Their fingers clawed at her clothes, at her skin, pulling her deeper into their collective embrace. A part of her screamed to break free, to resist, but another part, a darker, hidden part of herself, longed for that relief, that acceptance. "Don't fight it," Caldwell shouted, his voice slicing through the chaos. "You can't run from your own shadow." The lantern slipped from her grasp, extinguishing with a soft sigh, plunging the room into oppressive darkness. A void swallowed the cabin, the darkness pulsing, throbbing with an inhuman whisper. Within that black sea, the faces transformed, swirling into a myriad of figures, each one familiar yet twisted, embodying everything she feared. Summoning every ounce of willpower, Melissa twisted through the mass, gasping for air as shadows reached for her, wrapping around her limbs like chains. "Get off me!" She fought fiercely, hoping against hope to reclaim her freedom, but just as the weight began to lift, an image snapped into her mind, a memory of the woman's pleading face in the woods, eyes wide with terror. "I'll escape you!" Melissa screamed, pushing forward with a frantic burst of strength. But would it be enough? As the dark pressed in, she felt her footing falter, pulled further into the embrace of despair. The last flickers of hope danced before her eyes, blurring like smoke, and then silence again. The weight shifted, and the world faded. Was she lost forever? Help! The echoes of her voice faded into the void. But was there still a way back? Or was this cabin the end of everything she ever knew? The silence was suffocating. Nothing but the echo of her own heartbeat filled Melissa's ears. It drummed a frantic tempo, reverberating against the walls of the void that had swallowed her whole. She blinked into the darkness, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling like a deflating balloon. "Where am I?" she thought, panic gnawing at her insides. "Did I slip into another world?" Then came the voices. Whispered words, soft at first, layered like a soundtrack of faded memories. "Help us, join us, let go." Each phrase wrapped around her like tendrils of smoke, enticing yet poisonous. They exuded a desperate sorrow, an invitation with a sinister edge. She squinted into the blackness, but couldn't discern any shapes. A creeping dread laced through her bones, tightening the grip of fear. What had she opened the door to? She felt herself crumbling inward, thoughts swirling as she fought to maintain coherence. "Melissa!" A voice broke through. Familiar yet twisted. "Come, Melissa. Is that you?" She called out, her voice trembling. "Who is there?" "Just us," another voice replied, deeper, reverberating in her very core. The shadows suddenly coalesced into hazy silhouettes, faces morphing and shifting like a kaleidoscope of nightmares. She caught glimpses of the familiar, her mother's warm smile, her friend's infectious laughter, even a fleeting image of her childhood pet, eyes wide and pleading. "It's safe here." They chorused, the words curling around her like serpents. "You can be with us. Always." "No!" she screamed, shaking her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're not real." "Everything is real." Caldwell's voice slithered through the ranks of shadowy figures, lingering just behind their distorted physical forms. With each syllable, he drew nearer, his presence an unsettling weight on her senses. "You're losing yourself, Melissa. This is who you truly are. Embrace it." Each figure stepped closer, encircling her, their faces now contorted in anguish. The walls of her sanity were crumbling beneath the crushing reality that her mind had conjured these wretched things. "Fight, Melissa," she heard somewhere, deep within her. The voice throbbed like a heartbeat that wouldn't relent, the part of her that yearned to escape. "You can break free." Desperation clawed at her throat. She had to resist, had to find a way out of this nightmarish enclave. With sudden intensity, she thrust her hands outward, shoving against the malevolent tide, determined to find a way back. Yet the faces lunged, mouths agape, wailing as they reached for her. Fingers scraped against her skin, leaving icy trails. She could feel the pull of their despair, tugging at her very essence, urging her to succumb. "Let go, Melissa," they whispered in harmonious treachery, intertwining their voices like a dark spell. "No!" she roared, allowing her fear to forge a lance of courage. With an earth-shattering cry, she centered all her willpower into a bolt of defiance. "I want to be yours." Suddenly, a crack of light sliced through the suffocating darkness. It flickered like a beacon, momentarily dispersing the shadows. Faces recoiled, howls erupting from their throats as if the light burned them. In that moment, a path revealed itself, but it was hazy, flickering with uncertainty. "Run!" That familiar voice urged again, echoing against the silence. Without another thought, she moved, pushing through the writhing forms, pursuing the sliver of hope, her heart pounding like a war drum as the shadows shrieked behind her. Just as she reached the threshold, Caldwell's voice thundered in the distance. "You can't escape from what you are, Melissa. You will return." And then she fell through the light. The sensation was like splintering glass, shattering her reality as she emerged into a different chamber, one laden with remnants of the cabin, yet eerily still. It felt alive, throbbing with latent energy. But she was not alone. In the corner, a familiar face lingered, a ghost of the past with wide, fearful eyes. The cabin was not done with her yet. Help, the figure croaked, fingers trembling. Could she trust the face before her? Would this lead to salvation or a deeper plunge into horror? Melissa's heart raced as she took one trembling step forward. The face stepped closer, revealing sunken cheeks and hollow eyes that once sparkled with life. It was Emily, her childhood best friend, lost far too soon. "Melissa," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves rustling in a graveyard. "You have to help me." Melissa's stomach twisted. "What happened to you?" she stammered, each word tasting of dread. She took another step, wariness creeping in. "Where are we?" Emily raised a skeletal finger toward the far corner. "It's worse than you think. We're trapped here, Melissa. They want to let us go." The shadows danced along the edges of the cabin, creeping closer like predatory animals eyeing their prey. The air grew thicker, stifling and suffocating. Melissa fought back, the bile rising in her throat. Who want to let you go?" A distant wailing filled the space around them, chilling Melissa's bones. "The others, they want you to join them." "They're waiting," Emily said, her voice trembling as the shadows flickered violently behind her. "They want your light." Melissa felt ice spreading in her veins. The very walls of the cabin shuddered, vibrating with unholy energy. I can't stay here. I need to escape." Panic shot through her, sending her heart racing faster. "They'll come for you," Emily urged, desperation marking her features. "You have to find the door, the one that leads back." Melissa looked toward the windows, fogged and murky, but hints of moonlight glimmered through. The darkness swirled like a living entity, taunting her with whispers. "Join us, become one of us, shut up," Melissa shouted, turning toward the shadows, fury igniting in her chest. I want to be part of you." She turned back to Emily, her fear-filled eyes mirroring the panic boiling inside her. "Where's the door?" "There's no time. If you don't hurry." Emily's voice trailed off, her features twisting in agony as the shadows lunged forward. "Run!" Without waiting for another moment, Melissa sprinted down the dimly lit cabin, the wood creaking beneath her heavy footsteps. She could hear the shadows closing in, their laughter echoing behind her like a macabre symphony. "She can't escape. She belongs to us." The walls seemed to stretch and twist, hallways elongating, mocking her attempts to find an exit. Heart pounding, she pushed through the suffocating gloom, searching frantically for any sign of freedom, any flicker of hope. "Melissa!" Emily's urgent voice cut through the chaos. "This way. The door is in the back." She turned sharply, bolting towards the rear of the cabin, the surge of adrenaline fueling her every step. The shadows clawed at her back, cold fingers grazing her skin, leaving trails of dread as they tried to drag her back. Almost there. Emily called, her tone wavering. Hurry. Just ahead, a faded wooden door came into view, partially ajar, glowing faintly with an ethereal light that promised escape. But the shadows ramped up their efforts, shrieking in unison as they surged forward. Come back. They wailed. You're ours. Melissa pushed herself harder, her lungs burning as she lunged for the door. A hand grasped her wrist, pulling her back, but she fought against it with every ounce of strength. Let go. The shadows were relentless, a cacophony of desperation and despair. With one final, desperate burst of energy, she wrenched free and hurled herself through the threshold. A blinding light enveloped her, momentarily blinding and deafening, swallowing her whole, and then she fell again. This time, she collided with cold earth, gasping for breath. As her eyes adjusted, she scrambled to her feet, the familiar scent of pine trees surrounding her. She was back outside, but something felt wrong. The comforting sounds of the forest were muted, replaced by an unsettling silence. Her heart raced as she scanned the area, realizing she was standing on the edge of the cabin's clearing. But no, something shifted behind her. A shape moved in the shadows cast by the cabin, strands of darkness winding and coiling, forming a figure she recognized too well. You can't escape, Melissa Caldwell's voice echoed, slithering into her mind. You think you're free? The laughter surged again, sinister and mocking, as she turned to face it, dread pooling in her stomach. Could this be the real escape, or was it another trap? Melissa's breath hitched as the figure advanced. With a snarling grin, Caldwell stepped closer, the shadows thickening around him. You thought you could leave? Oh, sweet Melissa, the darkness will always find you. Panic seized her as she stumbled back, the damp grass beneath her shoes a cold comfort grounding her in reality. She felt the pulse of the earth, but it felt wrong, as if it too was alive with the tortured screams of those trapped within its folds. Get away from me! Melissa shouted, her voice cracking. The words felt weak, feeble against the might of the horror encroaching. She needed to think, to find a way to fight back. Caldwell chuckled, a low yet resounding sound that melted together the cries of Emily and the shadows. You're not strong enough, Melissa. They are coming for you, and there's nothing you can do. He extended his arms, the darkness swirling to his will, eager to wrap around her. Melissa's thoughts raced. The door. The door from the cabin. What if it could lead her to safety? The glimmer of hope flickering momentarily in her chest forced her to act. You're a coward, Caldwell. Using others to do your dirty work. Anger flashed across his face, transforming his smirk into a scowl. That's not how this works. You'd become one of us, willingly. There's no escaping that which craves your light. With every ounce of strength, she bolted right, her feet flying over the ground, forcing herself to stay ahead of the swirling shadows. Fear coursed through her veins, but she pushed it aside, her goal fixed firmly in her mind. She had to get back to the cabin's door. The shadows twisted whenever she dared to glance back, the laughter now mixed with sounds more sinister, a low growl that reverberated through the forest. It wasn't just Caldwell, they were haunting her now, taking form among the trees. The branches groaned and creaked, mirroring her escalating terror. He was gaining on her. She could almost feel the cold breath of shadows nipping at her heels. You can't save them, Melissa. They are gone. Caldwell shouted, his voice a knife slicing through the inky night. You'll join them soon enough. Her heart pounded mercilessly as she neared the cabin again, its outline looming like a monolith amid the encroaching darkness. An urgent whisper from within pulled at her instincts. The door might not lead her back, but perhaps it could conceal her from the horror. As she reached for the handle, a scream erupted from within, echoing against the walls as Emily's face flashed in her mind. You can't let them. The shadows leaped forward, angry and determined, swirling around her like a storm. Melissa hesitated just a heartbeat, fear gripping her chest like a vice. The door was a gamble, a choice fraught with potential horrors. But what choice did she have? With a swift motion, she threw herself through the door and slammed it shut behind her, heart racing. Inside, the cabin glowed dimly, but it felt thicker, the air oppressive. The shadows squeezed against the door, and she could hear Caldwell's fury boiling over. "You think you're safe? We'll find you." Melissa blinked as her surroundings pulsated, the shadows forming shapes, mocking her resolve. The whispers grew louder, chaotic and overwhelming, as more faces appeared, lost souls trapped like Emily. "Join us. You can't resist." They called, their voices merging into a chilling chorus. She couldn't know, she wouldn't let them take her. But how? The walls trembled, the shadows seeped in from every corner, clawing toward a fragment of light she could barely see. There was something in that light, something flickering behind the dark, something that felt like hope. But could she trust it, or would it only lead her deeper into despair? Time was running out, and the shadows whispered her name, beckoning with a surge of determination. Melissa took a step toward the light, but the shadows shrieked, echoing through the cabin, threatening to swallow her whole. Would she uncover the truth behind the light, or was it just another snare laid by the shadows? Her heart raced as she made her choice. Melissa closed her eyes, heart drumming in her chest as time stood still. The chaos outside blended into nothing but a distant roar as she took that fateful step toward the light. It shone brighter, illuminating her fear and panic, cutting through the suffocating pressure of the shadows clamoring for her attention. With every ounce of resolve, she reached into the shimmer and felt warmth envelop her, igniting the hope that had flickered dangerously close to being extinguished. The shadows recoiled at the brightness, howls of rage escaping their grasp as she pushed deeper. Around her, darkness seemed to melt, falling away in slow motion as clarity pierced through the gloom. "You're making a mistake." Caldwell's voice echoed, twisting the air with venom. "You can't outrun your shadow, Melissa. You will always belong to us." His words slithered into her mind, but they fell away like dry leaves blown by the wind. Emboldened, Melissa thrust her hands forward. Suddenly, she stumbled into a clearing, the light exploding to life around her. Before her loomed a grand tree, its roots sprawling and twisting beneath the earth like the memories she had fought to contain. And in the tree, shapes began to form, faces emerging, familiar yet distorted, lost in shadows. But then she noticed something, a soft glow emanating from the trunk, pulsating like a heartbeat. She stumbled closer, drawn to it, desperate to understand. As she reached out to touch the luminous core, the faces around her grew clearer. It was Emily, her friend, eyes pooling with hope and fear. "Melissa!" Emily cried, stepping closer through the haze. "You have to use it. The light is our chance. You can free us." All around, the spirits whispered, urging her to act. That flickering light was a doorway, a chance to rescue the trapped souls, those who had suffered the darkness Caldwell had unleashed. Her heart raced. Could she truly take on the shadows and fight for those who had lost their way? "Join us. You're one of us." Caldwell's voice hissed, stirring the growing shadows at the edge of the clearing, clawing at the light, desperate to dim it. "I will not. You have no power over me," she shouted, gathering strength from the warm, radiant glow. It filled her with a fierce, unyielding courage that pushed the doubt away. As darkness converged, Melissa made her choice. She lunged toward the glowing tree, fingers brushing against the pulsating bark. It vibrated with life, energy shooting through her. She focused, visualizing freedom, not just for herself but for all those lost to the horror. Urgency coursed through her veins. This was the moment. "I will break this cycle," she shouted, voice firm, shaking the very roots of despair surrounding her. The light surged outward, waves of brilliance exploding from her connection, pushing against the darkness, scattering it like dust in the wind. As shadows writhed and contorted, lost voices erupted into cries of relief and confusion. Faces she recognized, lost but not forgotten, began to materialize, breaking free from Caldwell's grasp. "Melissa!" Emily's voice rang out, joining the choir of freed spirits, eyes shining with gratitude. Caldwell's face contorted with fury, shadows writhing around him like venomous snakes. "No! You cannot do this," he screamed, but the light now enveloped him, wrestling against his darkness. They were converging, the flickering glow wrapping around the lost souls, pulling them tight before launching them into the night sky to freedom, to safety. With one final, desperate push, Melissa concentrated all her will. The brightness flared, tearing through the fabric of the shadows, stretching wider until a deafening roar filled the air. When the light receded, the clearing was still, silence replacing the chaos. The tree stood strong, no longer a prison but a beacon. She took a step back, tears streaming down her cheeks, feeling the warmth of release. Freedom had come at last, but she wasn't alone. Figures emerged from the tree's friends, family, sweet faces she thought she'd lost forever, smiling, glowing with a light she had ignited. Emily stepped forward, enveloping Melissa in a warm hug. "You did it. You saved us. I couldn't have done it without you," Melissa breathed, the weight of despair lifting, peace wrapping around her now. They were safe, free from the shadows that had once consumed them. As they joined together, a sense of belonging washed over her. The darkness had been vanquished, but she knew the scars would remain. Willow Creek could begin to heal. Caldwell's threats echoed faintly from the horizon, but she chose to ignore them. The cycle was broken. She felt the strength of her community binding them, filling the air with laughter and hope. They stepped away from the clearing, moving towards the dawn that awaited them. There would be challenges ahead, new shadows to confront, but they would face them together. Melissa turned back one last time to look at the tree, its light glowing brilliantly, casting a radiance that formed a protective barrier around Willow Creek. She smiled, at peace with the path that lay ahead. It was time to live again. Now more than ever, your support is needed. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your voice matters, and together, we will fight the shadows.